This week I'm going to introduce you to the Vuejs JavaScript framework, and I'm at the Vuejs website, vuejs.org, and I'm going to go into Get Started. And in this Get Started is all of the documentation, of course, but there's a lot of cool tutorials that'll help walk you through some of the things that we're going to be going over today. It's a JavaScript library. So I don't want to say it's a replacement for jQuery because it can do a lot more than jQuery can do. But I think after you see this video and work through the examples, you'll see why it's so cool. It's considered to be reactive, and let's just do it and see what all that means. So like any framework, we can download it or we can link to a CDN. And so I'm going to copy this code, which is a link to a CDN for the Vue library. And oops, I'll just minimize that. And then just like we normally do, we're going to want to, I thought I linked to that, but apparently I did not, so I'll just type it in. So we're going to put in our script tag, script source equals https and unpkg.com/vue and script with the end script tag. Okay, so I now should be linked to the Vuejs library. All right, so let's see how it works. I'm not going to do a whole fancy HTML page. I think you guys know how to create HTML by now. What I am going to do though is I'm going to create a div with an ID equal to app. And let's see, I'm just going to leave that alone for the moment, and I'm going to go below the div and put in a script tag where I'm going to put in all my Vuejs script. Okay. And what I'll do here is I'm going to create what's called a new instance of the Vue. Let's see, how am I going to do this? I'm going to do var app. So this is just a variable name, creating a variable name. And I'm going to create a new instance of Vue. And that has an open and closing parentheses, like you would expect. And then I'm going to put in an open and closing braces, because we're actually going to have some properties. It's key value pairs. We've seen JavaScript objects, and this looks very similar to what we've done with objects. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize a property called EL. Now this is a Vue property, so you have to use EL. You can't use whatever else you want. The only variable that I've used so far is app, so this can be anything you want, but the rest of this so far is Vue. So L refers to element. In other words, if I'm going to put in the name of this div ID that we have up here. So I'm going to put in a hashtag app. And so what you're effectively saying here is anything that is contained within this element, in other words, whatever JavaScript or HTML we have within this div is the JavaScript that Vue can attach itself to, that Vue can be manipulated by. So Vue is not affected by anything outside of this particular div because we've defined it with the ID app. So next we're going to also, let's give so far it's not doing anything, but another property that we can have access to is the property data. Now remember, this is a property name. It has to be exactly that. It can't be anything else. Well, it turns out that data is an object. And so we can put key value pairs here in data, and this will mean more as we go along. So for the moment, just kind of walk with it and see how it works, and think eventually it's all going to make sense. Now in this key value pair, in this object, I'm creating my own variable names. I'm going to create this data field. I'm going to call it that message, and I'm going to say hello Vue. Okay, so this is an object like we've seen in past videos, past lessons. So for each data property I have, or each key element, key value pair, I'm going to separate them by commas. This key value pair happens to be a key and an object, and since it's the last one, there is no comma that's followed afterward. And so now that I've created that, what I can do is just make it simple. I'm going to use these open and closing curly braces, also told that those are called mustaches. So I'm going to put those in my div. Remember that anything in the div Vue has access to. And so what is that doing for us? Well, let's pull back our, I guess I don't have my browser open anymore. Maybe I do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is open up, I should be able to just type in index.html, and there it is. Okay, so you can see that the data was read. Vue read the data from this variable, that key value pair that I gave it, and it printed it into message. Ooh, okay, well, not so impressive so far, but let's just keep rolling with the examples and see if I can impress you even further. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to put in an input tag with message. So input, I'm going to type in, let me just type it and then I'll tell you what I'm doing, equals message. Okay, so I've created an input field. It's within my app, and now I've given this, there's something inside my, there's an attribute, if you will, but this is a Vue thing. It's called a Vue directive, and it's directing, Vue is directing and saying, it's getting acknowledgement to itself. It's saying, hey, I'm Vue. This is what V dash means. That means Vue is supposed to do something. And what model does is it binds this input to this data, to this key. In other words, whatever I type in, this input is going to be put into our data field message and displayed here in data, in where I had this literal, if you will. So let's save that. And we'll go back into our browser and refresh our browser. And all right, well, since the input was bound to message, it also displayed the message. But what happens when we change our input? Look what happens to message. It's all reactive. So whatever I type in this input box is being automatically stored in this message property. And of course we print out that property here, so we'll see the change immediately. All right, so something else I want to share is if I right click on inspect element and I go to the console, we've been here before. In this console, I'm going to type in the name of my Vue object, which is app, and that data property, which is message. And let's say I change it to this is swimmingly cool, and I hit enter. You'll see the change take effect in both of these properties because both of these are bound, if you will, to that message property. All right, well, let's see if what else we can do. I'll minimize this. Good so far. All right, so let us see, I'm going to skip over that one. I'll do that in the next video. I have some examples here on my screen that's off screen, so I can try and make sure I give you everything that we need to do. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create a button. And in the past, what we're going to be doing is creating an event. In the past, to create an event, we would do in JavaScript, we would do on click, and then, or we would set up an event listener, and we do those sorts of things. Well, here's how we're going to do it in Vue. We're going to use that V dash again, and we're going to use on, excuse me, and we're going to send it an argument of click. So V on is a directive that says it's creating an event. So V on click as opposed to key up, button press, whatever. V on click equals, let's see, I think I'll do message equals, single quote, new message. So here's my single quote. I need this whole thing to be in double quotes. Okay. And so what we're doing here effectively is, let's see, close that. There's our closing of our button. Change the message. Okay, so here again, we're changing that data property. when we click on the button, we're going to be changing that message property to a new text. So let's see that happen. So refresh the page, and when I click on change the message, I got my new message because both of those are bound to that message data field. All right, so now we've created an event that can do things, but hard coding, maybe not so necessarily so good. So what we can do is let's create a method. So I'm going to do a comma, and I'm going to add another property called method. Now it's important that you name it the same thing. Obviously you can't, just like our other ones, you can't make this one up. It's actually methods, and then open and closing braces, and we can send it, we can create a function or a method. I'm going to call mine change title, and what we're going to do there then is I'm planning on moving this message down to here. Okay, the only caveat now is that in order to get to the message data, that's actually up here, and so in order to access it, it's not local within my, I could create a local variable within my function, but I want to use the data that's part of this instance. So by using the word this, I can access anything that's in this instance of the view. So if I say this dot message equals, let's say, new message from the method, that way we see the change. So now we're actually sending, I need to call that method from here, so change title. Okay, I could send it a parameter if I need to, or an argument. So I'm not sending anything right now, I can just leave that blank. All right, so let's see if that works. So I'll find my Firefox and we'll reload. I'm going to close this out for the moment and change message, new message from the method. So all of that seems to be working great. Okay, what else can we do? Well, let's see. How about if we create a to-do list? So to create a, sorry, I've lost my voice and I sound like a little young man changing his voice. Okay, so let us create in our data, let's see, where's my data? There we go. So I'm going to create a comma, and let's create a to-do list. So to-dos, and it's going to be an array. So, and I'm going to create several nested arrays, if you will, or nested objects within my array. So list learn HTML, list learn JavaScript. Okay, I need to put a comma here. There we go. So now I'm creating a array with the key value of to-dos, and so let's go ahead and print out our array in a UL. So I'm going to come back below my button here and create a UL, and let's see, I can create an LI, and I can create those literals like we did above with message, and I can say to-dos of 0, to-dos of 0, and then yep, to-dos, yep, okay, sorry, and then we're going to add the dot list. So to-dos of 0 dot list is pulling out the first element, the first object, and the key property. And then maybe I'll do this again and I'll print out the second one. To-dos list of 1. Perfect. Okay, let's see if that works. So I'll refresh my page, and it seems to be working. Okay. So let's see, what else can we do? This is kind of doesn't make sense, does it? We don't want to keep repeating. And what if I add another value? Then it's not going to be incorporated unless I go in and make that change, right? Learn view.js. So instead what we'll do is we'll get rid of this, and we want view to repeat li for a certain amount of times. So let's see, I'm going to get rid of that. So what we can do is v-for, so we're creating a for each loop. And then what we'll do is for equals, and then two quotes, and then our for condition is to do in to-dos. So in other words, loop through all of the elements in to-dos. Each time it loops through, one element gets put into the to-do variable, and then we want to print that variable out. So we can do to-do.list for that single element. So now, because this for each is inside li, li will also get repeated as many times as in this for each loop. So let's go ahead and run that and make sure that that works. Sure enough. All right. Looking good. Okay, so let's try one other thing before we finish. So next what we're going to do is called creating a computed property. And let me just get it set up before I explain what it is. So we're going to create another button, and on click of this button, v-on, click, we're going to call a method that we'll create called increment. And the idea in the short run is that anytime we click on this button, we're going to have a property that is going to keep track of how many clicks, how many times we click that button. So we'll call that property clicks. We're going to create, just for demonstration, a second property that we'll call clicks 5. And clicks 5 will always be 5 ahead of clicks. So if clicks is 1, clicks 5 will be increased by 5. So let's create that method. So we'll come down here. We already have this change title method, so we'll add another method, comma, and we called that increment. And we'll set up this dot clicks, add 1. So every time we click on the button, this method is called. We add 1 to clicks. And remember, we need that keyword this to get at our instances properties, all of our instance properties. This refers to this instance of view. So this dot clicks 5 is equal to this dot clicks plus 5. Okay, and let's see, we should probably set up initialized values for clicks. Clicks should start off with 0, and clicks 5 should start off with 0. Okay. Oh, commas, not semicolons. All right, so now we'll pull this over and check and see what we've done. So there's our increment button, and it isn't incrementing. 1 and 5. Good, looks good so far. Okay, so maybe I'll put just a little descriptor on here so it's a little bit clearer. This is clicks, and we'll make this one clicks 5. Okay, so next what we're going to do is set up what we call a computed property. So let me just set this in here. And this is computed. And the idea behind a computed property, and I'll call this computed, I don't want to call it computed because that's a keyword. Computed, let's do this. Let's say clicks, we'll call it clicks 10. And so the idea behind my computed property, or what a computed property does, is the clicks 10 is always paying attention to clicks. So if clicks changes, clicks 10 will automatically change as well. So it's similar to calling a function or a method, but we're not really creating a method. We're just saying we're going to tell clicks 10 to always listen to clicks and adjust yourself accordingly. So let's see that in action. So I'm not going to set it up here in the data, but what I am going to do is create a new property So we have properties, L, data, methods, and now one called computed. And it's an object as well. And we're going to set up the name of that property that we set up is clicks10. So in computed, we write that property name, clicks10, and we set it up as if it's a method, but it's really kind of not. The idea behind this is we want to return a value automatically every time clicks changes. So we need to make sure we have a return. And when, let's say this, return this dot clicks plus 10, let's say. So every time clicks changes, clicks10 recognizes that its value is based on clicks, and it then will add 10 and update whatever placeholder, if you will, we have. In other words, we have clicks10 set here, so go ahead and update that. Okay, let's see that in action rather than just talking. So we save this. We can see clicks10, or that computed value is already listening because it's adding 10 to 0. Which 0? Well, let's just test. So you can see that this one is listening to this value. Okay, the computed value property is listening to clicks. So every time clicks increases, so does the computed. Let's try this now. Let's create a decrement button so we can subtract values from click. Button v on click equals, and we'll do a decrement. Okay. And so what we're going to do in our decrement method is we made a new method for decrement. And we will decrease clicks by 1. I'll leave clicks 5 alone, so it'll only change when we increment. But let's take this dot clicks and subtract 1. I don't have to change clicks10 because it's already listening to clicks. So if clicks is being added or subtracted to, the computed property is automatically going to recognize that and adjust itself accordingly. So let's see that in action. So zeros, so we'll increment, looking good, and let's check decrement. So you can see the computed property is also adjusting itself. It's listening very closely to what clicks is doing and also just updating itself. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so in our next video, we'll see some looping and some little bit more conditions of how Vue works.